What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media. First off, I want to apologize. I don't have my normal setup. That'll just be for today. I'll be back at home recording tomorrow for Mock Draft Monday. But in this video today, I wanted to talk about two things. First off, I want to talk about the Chuck Clark trade. I think that's a big thing to talk about. But then I also want to transition it into the question of what do the Ravens now do at safety? If you did not hear, the Baltimore Ravens sent Chuck Clark to the New York Jets for a 2024 seventh round pick. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on that trade. For me, I thought it was a really good deal. I saw a lot of people really surprised about the return for Chuck Clark. For me, I don't know why a team would trade for Chuck Clark. Not saying he's a bad player, but I don't think he's a needle mover. I don't think he's someone that's going to take over your team. He's not on that cheap of a contract. We're getting him for just uber cheap. It's like, okay, he's an okay football player. And people are not going to give up a lot of picks or give up good assets to now have to pay someone before the draft. Now, if you want to trade for a guy like Chuck Clark in the season, it's going to cost you more. But in off-season trades, players typically cost less because the teams know that, hey, you know what? If we don't get this guy, that's fine. We can just draft a guy that can play that position. So the Jets were looking at, they're like, yeah, we could draft a safety, or we could just, send over a future pick, have to pay him a little bit more right now. But the Ravens had to get rid of Chuck Clark. And the trade for Chuck Clark did not affect the $9 million that the Ravens have to make up before the deadline on Wednesday for the cap due to the Lamar Jackson franchise tag. That doesn't account for it. But it does count for the prior to week one salary cap needs that the Ravens have and have to meet because Chuck Clark was getting paid a little bit too much money. And he was not a player that was likely to be starting. Yes, he did call the defense for the Ravens. Yes, he was I would say, a valuable piece to this Ravens defense. But that doesn't mean that you're needed next year. And he was a player that a lot of people thought was going to be traded. I saw people saying as high as second round picks for Chuck Clark. And I kept saying, I was like, guys, we're not getting that. Like, we're getting a day three pick. Like that's what's going to happen. And we got a seventh round pick. The benefit is it is from the Jets. They don't expect the Jets to be the best team in the NFL. So it's not going to be the last pick in the draft. It'll probably be middle of the seventh round. And again, that's not crazy return, but also we were able to acquire a pick. It's better than cutting it. And, overall with that seventh round pick, luckily it's not this year. So, next year we'll be talking about, oh man, who can we really, get for this Chuck Clark deal? The reason Chuck Clark was moved so that Kyle Hamilton could take over as the safety, right? He and Marcus Williams, we all knew it was going to be the future. I was thinking Chuck Clark was going to get traded last season or last offseason. He didn't. I figured he'd get cut or traded this offseason. Happened a little earlier than I was expecting. I was thinking maybe it'd be after the draft, but you know what? It happened. Now the Ravens are in a position. Eric DeCosta's in a position where we're looking at draft time. We're looking at free agency. Free agency starts on Monday. You can sign players on Wednesday. Do the Ravens need a safety? I don't think the Ravens are signing a safety. So basically, that begs the question, do the Ravens need to draft a safety? And I believe they do, because when you look at the way that this Ravens defense plays, they like to play a lot of nickel, and they like to have sub linebackers played by safeties. They're not a team that wants to throw out four cornerbacks and two safeties. They want to throw out three corners and three safeties because they really like what that range, what that speed in the middle can do. The benefit is they have two very good safeties. I would say two. If people want to get angry, I'll just say borderline elite. You could say they're two elite safeties, but I'll say borderline elite safeties at the minimum in Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. And both of those guys have the ability to play closer to the line of scrimmage. Kyle Hamilton's better at it than Marcus Williams, but Marcus Williams has handled his own, at least playing in the slot, in packages where they may be looking to run. He did that against the Cincinnati Bengals. He was covering Jamar Chase over the middle because they wanted to get him closer to the line of scrimmage. With Chuck Clark gone, because Chuck Clark, that's what he did. That's really what he did well, was play close to the line of scrimmage, play in the box. I don't necessarily want to call him a box safety because that has a different connotation. I feel like that's more of like a true sub linebacker. I don't think that was Chuck Clark. I think he was more just a line of scrimmage type of safety rather than the traditional, box safety. I think box safety, I think of like Cam Chancellor, right? really good asset to this team was having those three safeties out on the field that are all smart and all can make plays. And now we're missing Chuck Clark. The Ravens only have 5 picks in this draft, but luckily they do not have a lot of positions of need, right? I think corner's a clear need, and they could re-sign Marcus Peters. I don't expect them to, but they could re-sign him to fill that, number 2 corner lead. But the other position I think is the wide receiver position. A lot of people have been talking about the running back. I don't know if you guys saw this news. I can talk about it really quickly right now. The Ravens restructured Gus Edwards' contract, which made it basically almost inevitable that he's going to play for the Ravens this year. Like the way that they structured that contract was he's going to be on the team. Because they had the option, they could cut him, and that was my expectation was we would cut him. But it looks like they're going to keep him, so I don't think the Ravens are going to need to draft a running back. They could. I'm not ruling it out, but it's not a need anymore. So I feel like there's really only 3 needs now, and it's corner, safety, and wide receiver. And this first round, they have a really, really unique player that initially I was not a huge, I want to say, advocate of the Ravens drafting, but I would not be, I just want to throw this out there. I would not be surprised. And myself tomorrow, Eric DaCosta on draft day, I'm going to be doing my mock draft. And if Brian Branch is sitting there, I'm really going to have to be thinking about it. Because Brian Branch, as a safety, is a safety cornerback hybrid. He can play close to the box, he can play slot corner, and he can play over top. He can do it all as the safety. He's a really smart football player, and he fits kind of what the Ravens are looking to do. I probably wouldn't say he's my number 1 pick for the Ravens to go after. I do need to now watch a lot more of him. I've only watched a little bit from just watching Alabama and, just overall that, defense, looking at prospects. I want to watch him specifically, though. But there's other guys. I'm not saying that Brian Branch is the only guy that we can go after. I really like J.L. Skinner. I've seen you guys in the comments talking about J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. As a really big, box safety, basically, is what he is. Type of player to bring to this defense. But overall, I do feel the Ravens are going to draft a safety because I don't think they have a safety on the roster that fills what they need out of their safety 3. Not saying that people can't do it like Geno Stone. I like Geno Stone. I like his game, but I don't think he can play close to the line of scrimmage. I don't think he can play in the box. I think he's an over the top, maybe single high type of safety, which is a good backup role. If the Ravens are having to go into dime coverage, if they're having to go in dollar or something like that, Geno Stone is a perfect player to throw out there because you just say, hey, watch over top, right? Maybe you go cover 4, cover 3, cover 2, whatever it is. Geno Stone's a player that you can put out there. You can put him on special teams. But on the every down, on most third down, if it's 3rd and long, I'm probably not putting Geno Stone out there because when you put a guy like Geno Stone out there, you know what they're going to do, right? He's going to be deep in coverage. He's not going to be close to the wide receivers. He's going to be the back, which means that you look at the other safeties and you go, okay, either Kyle Hamilton or Marcus Williams is going to be stepping up. The quarterback's able to recognize that. Quarterbacks are smart, guys. They recognize that. And so then they're able to say, okay, I just need to watch one of those 2 rather than watching him. If you draft somebody that is, diverse and able to do, it all, like a Kyle Hamilton, then it becomes, oh, I don't really know what coverage they're doing because Kyle Hamilton is close to the box right now, but he could bail. He could play over top or he could stay. Those sorts of things Mike McDonald really likes to do. And you want to try and confuse the quarterbacks. You want to try and put them in situations that they're not expecting. And getting a safety that can do both is something that I think the Ravens are going to have to look at. I think it's something they will look at, and I think it's something they're going to act on. I think they are going to draft a safety that is kind of a hybrid guy. And I think that's really valuable in the NFL because you can put them out wide. You can put them over top. You put them in the box. You can put them in it, playing slot. I think that's exactly what they want to do. Do they have players that can start at the slot? Yes. They have Pepe Williams, right? Do they have guys that can, maybe play a little bit of safety? Yeah, they have Brandon Stevens. He's shown, maybe he can do it. He played at safety in college, transition corner. But he's not, a big tackler, right? He's not someone that's going to play in the box. He can kind of do it both, but he doesn't have it to that next level like a Kyle Hamilton does. Do we need a player on the level of Kyle Hamilton? No. I think Chuck Clark was a really good asset to have in just that he did multiple things in that, he could play towards the line of scrimmage. You could play over the top a little bit, but really while he was there was he was calling plays. So he was doing multiple things at once. Now we don't need somebody to call plays. It's most likely, I believe, going to be Roquan Smith. That's what makes the most sense to me. It could be Patrick Queen. It could be somebody else, but I assume it's Roquan. Who is going to be there, moving up, moving back, doing it all? That's what we need at the safety position, as a safety three. Because in the modern NFL, teams are not in base 4-3 as much as they used to be. This isn't 2005. It's not even 2012. Secondary is taking over in the front seven. So I think having, a safety that can be in multiple spots on the field is something that the Ravens are going to have to look at. I will absolutely be looking into more safeties, guys like Jordan Battle, as well as Brian Branch, JL Skinner. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have other, even farther down sleepers, around 5, 6, 7, that I could look at, because I do need to look at them, and I want to inform you on those guys. I need to watch some film on them, but because it's not been a position I've been watching. I've waited to know, what we're going to do with Chuck Clark. He's traded. All right. Now we have to act and we have to replace him. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow with a Mock Draft Monday.